as well. Welcome to the Love Power Show. I'm Wallace, radio moderator. Get ready. Hold your hat. This is going to be a fast ride to the top. Grab a phone. Get on the computer, www.com. Call us right here at 901-452-3094. You can call us also at 901-2324-7490. AM 730 West Memphis, Arkansas, sports station online. WMQM AM 1600 radio box. Pick us up online right away. So we're going to be covering a lot of topics today. All over, across the board. We've got Omar Barutis here with us today. In person. Dan Claiborne operating the cameras. Isaac Woodridge running the board. We thank you so very much. And we're going to start, and let me just say something about a little education about these masks. As I said last week, the lungs are not designed to wear a mask 24 hours a day. Only when you're in a crowd of people or close proximity to where you think this airborne stuff may leap all over the place. Riding in your car by yourself, you don't need to wear a mask. Walking down the street by yourself, you don't need to wear a mask. When I go walking in the park, I have one just in case. Preparation. But you're in the open air, the open space. So people need to be properly educated. But it tells me one thing, Dan.
Yes, sir.
How much people don't really pay attention and they don't listen. I just hate to see people walking around with masks and they don't need to. Now, if you see us on Facebook, you see me with a mask on. I've accumulated about 10 of them. You know. We saw a grand celebration on yesterday, known as the 4th of July. Perhaps Judge Joe Brown will call in and weigh in. Troy Williams called and said he wants to come in and set the record straight. Well, come on down and let's make a deal on the Love Power Show. Yes, and the smoke, the remnants of the smoke are still in the air, right here in Memphis, Tennessee. And you know what I noticed? Now look, people can like whatever they like. Maybe I did some popping when I was younger. You know, that's why I give the young people some consideration. I was once young and foolish. You see? But why don't they clean up behind themselves? I think that's a good question. Dan, I see you agreeing with me. Why don't they clean up behind themselves? And that begs another question, or more questions. Why don't they do a lot of things that those of us who are wearing conscious look at and say, why don't they? Who's they? Those who pop the firecrackers and then clean them up till 3 o'clock in the morning. There's no telling how many people got hurt. No telling how many people were shooting real guns. Yeah, I've got a little chuckle behind that, but it's not funny. This is serious talk. I go now to you, Brother Omar Baruti. What's on your mind?
We'd like to thank the listeners for tuning in today. And we'd like to remind you that every word we say is for the children in the household. And if you look into the protest movement today, it's our children. They are leading the protest movement because somewhere many of them woke up. We've had black people talking for decades and centuries about the problem that we face in this country and around the world. And those leaders' message finally is resonating in the hearts and minds of our children. And we bring this broadcast to you today for the same children. The ones who are here today, the ones who have already left us, and the ones who are coming tomorrow to continue to fight. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started.
Let's go ahead and get started. And it looks like we have a caller. Is that right, Isaac?
Judge Joe Brown.
We've got Judge Joe Brown on the line, calling in early. Yes, sir. He's ready to go. I can tell. And so, Judge, we're looking at the celebration, smoke in the air, the mess that was left and not cleaned up. Well, maybe they're going to come clean up later on. So we're asking the question about that, Judge. Why not? We're talking about, like you just heard Omar mention, the protest and the young people. I want to add to that this cry for a better of life, I'm not going to call it cry, fight for a better life in this country is not going anywhere. Now we see, sometimes we don't hear or see much, but it's always on the stove, and it may be on the low, but it's not out. The flames will turn up, and the water will boil. And as we continue to observe the murder, the killings, the young people will rise up and speak out. Any part of it, Judge Joe Brown, go ahead, and we may talk some local politics. I don't know if Corey Strong is coming. Latrell Williams called and said he's coming. So let's move as quickly as we can and cover as much ground as we can. Go ahead, Judge Joe Brown.
I'd like to call attention to a news item from yesterday. Several thousand black men showed up armed with carbines, riot guns, and everybody with a pistol in essentially black utility uniforms at Stone Mountain, Georgia. I didn't know what to make of it, but in all of my years, I've never seen that many armed black people in one place. They way outdid Antifa and all of the Klansman types in terms of the turnout. It was interesting. The only thing that I had a problem with was that it was associated with that anti-family, anti-man, pro, as they put it, queer thing, that pedophile thing, that lesbian thing, Black Lesbians Matter movement. I thought that association was wrong, and it was another example of co-optation, but it was good, I guess, to see thousands of black men all armed and marching.
Okay.
Now, that's a different march. I haven't seen a march that big in years, but in this case, everybody was armed. They were strapped. I found that interesting. Now, juxtaposing on that, last night, you talked about the fireworks you did. You mentioned it. Brother Baruti mentioned that too. Where I live, there are fireworks all the time. I've been here 20 years. It's upscale, but last night, I have never really heard gunfire over here, but a lot of gunfire last night, a whole lot of it. And I find that to be indicative of just a lot of tension. You know? So, two interesting developments.
Right. Well, let me ask you, how was it the media who associated this movement of black men armed with the other items you mentioned?
Yeah, queer women, the Black Lesbians Matter movement. That's BLM. I don't go to that Black Lives Matter fest. We need to get away from that because that's just poison. That's just destruction of manhood and the family that they're really talking about. And people, before they go out, Black Lives Matter, and start trying to explain to white folks Black Lives Matter as much as any, and all of that. You need to understand how we're getting co-opted and all the money that's going in, and it goes to the LGBTQ. They put it on their website. Whenever you make a donation, it goes there, and then they've got another front organization, Act Blue, which goes directly to the Democratic Party. So I just find it extremely sleazy that the Democratic Party is getting in on secretly fleecing black folk for money by going through this Black Lesbians Matter thing. And by the way, we should do BFM, Black Folks Matter, Black Families Matter, Black Fathers Matter, Black Finance Matter.
Yeah, that sounds good. Now, let me ask you this real quick. Are you suggesting that the Black Lives Matter movement is a reactionary movement?
It's a perverted movement.
A perverted movement. I thought I detected something as you pointed that out.
It's really sick because when you go to their site and actually look at their manifesto, which says what we believe, one of the things that's interesting, they start off talking about Ferguson and Trayvon and so on and so forth, and now they have a thing up there where they got a slide through show on Mr. Floyd and everything else, and then as soon as you get past that first little part, it says we are a queer affirming network.
Okay.
Then it goes to we must submit to the leadership of our trans brothers and sisters.
Submit to their leadership. We must submit to their leader. Well, you know, you said that to me once.
They start talking about suppressing cisgender, which is code for straight black men, and then they start. The bad one is therefore the destruction of the traditional nuclear family. You know, it's like, come on now. That's all of the bad stuff. And although they supposedly are bringing people in concerned about all of the black men that are getting slain by police, they don't mention black men in there except as something to suppress.
Okay.
Specifically to suppress. And then they talk about this thing that is lifted directly from one of the most poisonous organizations out there. It's NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Okay, well, Judge, let me, I'm going to come back to you.
No,
go ahead, Judge, go ahead.
Just the last thing. The second to last paragraph of what we believe is lifted straight from the NAMBLA manifesto. Straight from it. And if you want to check it out, South Park even does a thing on it.
Yeah.
And most people think it's a spoof, but it's a reality. So it's like, I can't support that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that may be an association by the press. Several people I talked to wanted to know about that. Is that real? Or what the hell is going on? All those put money into it or what?
Right. Now you said NAMBLA. Let's break that down just a little bit more, then I want to come back here. North American Man-Boy
Love Association. They're pushing pedophilia. Part of the move that this BLM group and LGBTQIA+ is pushing. Where you eliminate age as a consent factor in sexual activity. That's part of the 1960 1972 Gay Rights Manifesto. It's under state action, and it is either number 5 or number 7. It's been a while since I looked at it, but that's what they have in there, and that's what they're trying to push, along with that tranny thing, getting the kids to be read to by these queer folk who got a clothes fetish and they dress up like the other side. They talk to all the kids in the public libraries. That's what they're doing.
Okay, we've got watching on Facebook Andrew Withers, Donzo Rashidi, and Nina Holly watching on Facebook, and we thank you so very much. Is that it, Dan, for right now?
Jabril.
And we've got Jabril Shabazz watching. We thank him so very much. One of the longtime activists, good and great brother. Omar, what do you hear as an interpretation of what the judge has just said? I can see you smiling beneath the mask. But the movement right now, it looks good, it sounds good. And when they first started screaming Black Lives Matter, I liked it. I was screaming it too. But other things have happened since then. So the question comes to my mind is that we've got a lot of work to do. And it's not going to be easy because of all of the co-option, the talking about submitting to gay this and gay that. Those are the kinds of things that I hear. Go, Omar, take it away.
You know, you can have a movement that has a good purpose and has a goal that's worth achieving. And then you can have somebody or some group come into the movement and then subvert the movement and get you completely off track.
That's right.
And that's what I see happening right now before our eyes. You know, this thing with the gay and the homosexual community, you know, the lesbian community. You know, back in the day, we didn't have any issue about who they were. We knew that they were against what God was for, and we knew they had a place, and that was in the psychiatric ward, the psychology couch. We knew something happened to them, so we had no doubt about that. And now they have laws passed that say they are normal people and you got to respect them as such, and they don't have any mental health issues, and you need to, address them like they're everyday people. Although all the evidence proves otherwise.
Yes.
When I hear Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talk about, that community, she says there's no such thing as a gay gene in your body. It doesn't happen. You're not born that way. Something happened to you. She's a psychiatrist. And she said there's something happened to you, and what she does is when she has people that come into her office, while she was living, she would have them go back to the moment in time when that something did happen and help them conquer the something that happened to them so they can go back to a normal lifestyle. But think about that. We got people who are claiming to be normal, but are not, by all scientific means. And I like science. I don't like, hearsay and what you say. I don't like that. That's based on science. Then they come into the movement and co-opt the movement, and now you got us off track going in that direction. We should abandon them. If they're not going to be with the movement 100% the way it should be, then they need to get their own movement somewhere else. And don't copy off us, and we're not joining you, and don't try to join us. And then we see you in the movement, we're going to put you out.
Omar, you said the movement, what comes to my mind, guidelines, rules, regulation. What comprises an authentic movement, and should that authenticity be prepared, those who committee or whatever put that together, to change and shift when and as needed?
You know, when I heard my friend talk about the lesbian movement and NAMBLA and some other things that he mentioned, I'm thinking, how can you let these people join if that's what their manifesto is? If that's their foundation, how can they join you in that? We already been co-opted. In these major cities where we are the predominant race, black folk, they still call us the minority because we accept it.
That's right. That's
we should not accept it. We don't want minority contractors. We want black contractors. You use minority because you're giving away your rights that you fought hard to get. So when you let somebody else come in, now a gay person is a minority. Even if they, a whole different species of person. White, Chinese, whoever. That's not who was enslaved for 400 years. You were enslaved. And they're trying to right the wrong for what happened to you, not what happened to them, because they weren't the victims of that 400 years of oppression. So when you let that co-op be a minority, then you're giving away the things that you won and the things you fought for and the things you bled and died for, and your children deserve it, even if you can't get it right. Now your children deserve it. You got to come out of that mindset. Don't co-opt who you are and what you're about. If they want to be something, let them get their own movement. Let them talk about their own suffering. Don't you let your suffering be their suffering, because it's not their suffering.
Yes, sir.
You are in this thing by yourself, and you can get those fruits and those rewards that you earn by yourself and for yourself and for the children that come after you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Judge, I hear a combination of good ideas. And I hear.
I want to push this one. It's a psychological one.
Okay.
They have got us so psyched out about protecting the rights of these queers that we forget to use the word sissy and queer. Now, LGBTQ, that Q stands for queer. Also questioning. So they can use the N-word, they can call us all kinds of nasty things. They get away with, having more rights than everybody else does. So as an approach to fighting this, if you love your children and grandchildren and don't want these queer perverts getting a hold of them and corrupting them, so they can recruit somebody to join them in their misery or self-hate, then we need to get active. And one of the things is a sissy is still a sissy, so start using the word. You have a First Amendment right to do that. Damn, that's not hate speech, but they will try to claim it.
Yes.
But start using sissy. Start using queer. There is nothing that is respectable about what they do. It's their right to do it. They've got a right to do what they want to in their bedroom. But when they start trying to barge in our living room and start spreading that confusion to our children and grandchildren,
Yes.
like Brother Baruti says, that's a whole different game. And if they start pushing politics, they're just like the Democrats or the Republicans when they go to the LGBTQ queer party. They're just as open to commentary and pushback as any other party. Now we have to start doing that. In a strategy, the white people defeated affirmative action by coming up with the concept of reverse discrimination. In other words, to have affirmative action, you supposedly had to discriminate against white people to do it. Well, guess what? All of this queer mess is going around discriminating against straight people. So we have to start pushing for moments to set up lawsuits claiming that we have been victimized by reverse discrimination, and we can start with First Amendment stuff, freedom of speech on the job and elsewhere. They can call us what they feel like it, and we have no recourse. But as soon as we start trying to express our First Amendment rights for political purposes or otherwise, we get struck down for hate literature on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, mainstream media, and that's reverse discrimination. When we have a job, if we don't sit there and play along with that rainbow queer crap, then we're supposed to be bad. We're supposed to be into a hate thing that gives them legitimate reason not to hire us or to fire or to fire us. So we have to start pushing back and start strategizing.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. When we start talking about words, language, and labels and all of that, when we, like people of color, we allow these, like you're talking about strategizing, etc. But this idea of critical thinking comes into play And we have to be, this is my opinion, analysis, experience. Be careful in allowing certain words, they're so subtle to come in to your movement, they ease them in, and before you know it, they're all over the place. And again, the movement becomes co-opted by whomever jumps into the fray. Now, Judge, say something about the Democratic Party.
Okay.
How is the Democratic Party, in what ways are the Democratic Party detrimental to us as a group? Whatever we call ourselves, Black, African American, I don't care. In what ways, Judge? Let's go down the list.
Okay, if we get the Democratic Party back in and let them get control of the Senate, White House, or whatever, the first thing they're going to start doing is getting back into debating on who gets to pee in the girls' bathroom besides girls. On whether you get some queer boys with their dicks hung out, soaked down in junior high and high school girls' locker rooms and shower rooms, showering with the girls. See, that was also part of Obama's executive orders. And that got hung up, and we ought to be glad that it did get hung up, because they were talking about letting naked boys get in showers with naked girls in junior high and high school. And anybody with any common sense knows how poisonous that would be.
Yes.
Now, next thing, we have this problem. If we get bungling, backbench warming, bribe-taking Biden in there, racist, bigoted Biden in there, he has said on many occasions that his number one priority will be queer advancement, for legislation favoring queers, for, and you noticed I'm using that word, for, and that's part of their own mantle, but let's use it so we can think about it. And he promises to get a queer or lesbian for his running mate. So what in the devil's going on here? And the first thing that happens is he gets as sick as his sick behind obviously is, under a little thin superficial veneer, and he decides to resign so he can be the historical figure that messes up even more and gives us the first queer president or lesbian president. See, that's what you have in place when you do that. You get a situation where there are no black jobs, there's no black advancement in the military. You get somebody that is going to start making this queerness that they're trying to push on our children mainstream. You get all support and pushing this thing that Illinois did, where they don't even teach sexuality, normal human sexuality to children, but they teach queer sex now starting July 1st, 4 days ago. They have to teach queer sex before the 8th grade. Now what in the devil are you teaching anybody that young about sex for in the first place? You can't do it with straight sexuality, but you can get queer sex in the mix. They're going to start trying to fund government programs where you get queer trannies out there, sick folk trying to read to children in public libraries and make those some forms. They're trying to pass this anti-lynch bill that Juicy Jesse set up, and that was a setup that lined off. It was caught on video, security camera video, with those two Nigerians buying that noose the week of Halloween that was supposed to be around his neck on that cold 15-degree Fahrenheit day when that little punk was out getting salad at 3 o'clock in the morning, and when everybody else got their ears covered up with scarves, earmuffs, and hats, fur hats, several white folks supposedly with red mega baseball caps were out there hunting to find one of him in downtown Chicago to jack up. And then now what did they call it? John Conyers introduced that bill in 1997. It keeps getting decently tabled by all of the decent folk in Congress and the Senate. Every damn time it comes out of committee, it got tabled again last year, but because Juicy Jesse take that thing off, that's Jesse Smollett, what happens is that they revive it and they call it the anti-lynch bill, and of course nobody reads these days, including congressmen and senators. So now it's all hot to be passed. We've got another farcical thing where they had all that televised acrimonious debate on whether to have a study to give black people reparations. And then 2 weeks later, with no debate, straight through on a boys' call, they passed what they styled reparations for gays in terms of insurance benefits. So it's like, do we want that kind of thing? We don't need it.
Gotcha. Isaac, what line is open?
324-7490.
Okay, we've got a line open, 901-324-7490, and we have another line just in case. Omar, what is your position, and where do you come down on the Democratic Party in terms of building on what Joe said, contrast and compare? Let us hear from you, sir.
You know, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are two wings on the same bird. Neither one has our best interests at heart, neither one. And I have to say that. When Hillary ran against Trump, it was like voting for Satan or voting for Beelzebub. They were going to both give you hell. Just which one's fire was going to be hotter and going to consume you even faster. And so happened it was Trump. But I see that the similar things here. You know, I agree, he is a racist. Definitely that.
Okay.
And I also see that Trump is racist to the 10th power. He ain't got no doubt about that one.
Okay.
and he lets it be known. And there are some black conservatives, I just heard one on the radio coming in, who's always supporting Donald Trump. But this is a man who is totally blind, totally ignorant, and I can't feel sorry for him. And I hope that somewhere God will, erase him because he can get him out of his misery. But somewhere, black folk got to wake up. I want to say this too. I work for a company that we do mortgages.
Right.
And what I'm seeing is that there are a lot of black folk coming in office who have been purged from the voter rolls. I want to say today, right now, because Mother Jones magazine said that 17 million people have been purged from the voter rolls since Trump took office. Between 2016 and 2018, 17 million have already been taken off the roll, not because they died, but because they were removed. And Trump has intention of staying in power even after the election's over. But he wants to do like he did in Kentucky, close most of the polls throughout the whole state. So that way it's only a few polls that you can go vote at, in spite of COVID-19. And he really didn't want no mail-in ballots. But he's trying to do everything he can to suppress the votes so that he can stay in power for another 4 years. We have got to wake up. If you don't know if you registered to vote or not, call somebody and find out. Because if you have been taken off the polls, you need to go right now and re-register. And as soon as early voting starts, day one, you need to go vote. Don't wait till the polls, till the day of the election. Go right now and vote. If they say that we can vote July, whatever it is, go vote right now. And if they say you're not registered to vote, then go get your stuff fixed so you can go back and vote. But right now, that's a crisis that we're going to have to deal with, and especially in black America, where they're really trying to get us off the voters' registration polls. They're trying to get us off of it. But yeah, Biden has a lot of issues, and I see them, and it's hard to stomach them. But the man that's in power right now, look, I'm surprised that Satan ain't sitting right beside him.
I understand. Now tell us a little bit more about the company you work for and setting black people up and helping them get into homes, etc. This is a good program, and land is the basis of wealth. Talk more about that, and we'll go to the phone and back to Judge. Go ahead, Omar.
The company I work for is a company called NACA, Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. NACA has been around for over 30 years, it has no advertising budget, so most of what we do is word of mouth. And what I like about NACA is that, and I learned about NACA over 20 years ago. And I started sending people to NACA because as a landlord, my thinking always is you should own where you live. I'm not selling my house to you, but you should own something and live there. Because I've been owning where I live since I was 23. And I'll be 73 this year, so but I know that. So, like you said, land is the basis of freedom and wealth. And how you transfer wealth from yourself to the next generation is through ownership of real estate, of land. Donald Trump is a billionaire not because of the stock market, because he's a billionaire because of land. He owns things. He can pass that wealth down to the next generation. But NACA is a company that was built because that came into existence because of economic deprivation, and it was on the lines of race. Company that would allow black folk to come into their company to get a house with good credit, and they charge them too much interest rate with good credit. They come in with good credit, and they made them pay too much down and too much for closing costs. So when a lawsuit was filed against those banks, and one of the biggest ones is Bank of America, then they had to come to the table and make some agreements. And one of those things is that we're not going to use credit scores at all. Whether you got 400, 800, or no 100, we're going to still get you approved. And then as far as down payment, if you get approved for a $100,000 house or a $200,000 house, we're going to finance the whole thing. We're not going to give you 97% loan or 80% loan. The whole amount that you got approved for, you're going to finance that whole amount. The closing costs, the appraisal fee, the attorney fees, the document preparation fees, all those fees are paid for by the bank. So out of that $13 billion that NACA has at its disposal, $6 billion comes from one bank, and that's Bank of America. Our next biggest contributor is City Mortgage. Now, people come into the office who don't think they can get a house. And I have seen people go out there in tears because they finally got a home, and sometimes in their 50s and 60s. They finally got a home, and they on fixed income. Some of them had bankruptcy 2 or 3 years ago. They've had all kinds of things happen in their life, and there's a way to make it work for them. And so when I see it, and I see a lot of single moms with children, a lot of them, it makes my heart, it tears into my heart. That's why most nights I'm there in that office till like 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning trying to work on files to get people approved, because I know you need it, I know you got to have it, and I know that the children will benefit from that. So I'm working not for the parents so much, I'm working for the children, because NACA has a way to make it happen. And they do it every day. And I mean, I see people who never thought they'd own a home walk out there with some keys and a smile, and that's all I care about.
Let's go to the next caller. You've been waiting for a while. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, did you all hear that Kanye West is running for president and over by dreaming?
Yeah. We heard about it.
Okay, I was just making sure I heard right.
Yes.
What do you think about it, though?
I think he's a very brave guy. Very, very brave. And he's very convinced. He has confidence. He'll get some votes, but I don't know. I know he won't sponsor Trump or the other guy. Trump or Biden.
Right.
He won't do that. He will get some votes, though. And black conservative, he's just blinded coon.
Yes. Lord, yes.
He does not love himself.
Yes. Amen on that one.
He doesn't love himself. He just doesn't. And he tries to keep up with the Joneses. So, you have to ignore him. He has no sense at all.
Yes. Lord, yes.
Did you hear a black conservative?
I didn't hear what she's saying.
Do you agree with what she's saying, Judge?
I didn't hear a thing she said.
Oh.
I can't hear it all. All I'm hearing is slight static in the background. But you're coming in loudly and clearly, so is Brother Baruch. I can't hear what the lady said. What'd she say?
That's Judge Joe Brown, yes.
The real Judge Joe Brown?
The real Judge Joe Brown.
Yes,
Hello, Judge, how are you?
Well, let me make a remark here. See, we have to start thinking strategically, not just short-term tactically. The queers have been thinking strategically for years, and you see what they are accomplishing.
Yes.
Every statistic that has been done on it shows for the last 100 years when they started doing these things, they are about 6% of the public. But we think they were 50 to 60% now, not 6. But one of the long-term strategies is quit thinking of just the next election and quit falling for this mantra of the Democratic Party, which is the lesser of two evils. Now, on the national level, perhaps if we tried this, vote, let's say, the exact opposite of the way you usually vote. That way the Democrats will wonder where their Negroes in their inwards went while trying to get them back. And the GOP will be rejoicing over getting their Negro votes and trying to get more. And that strikes me as a win-win situation. Most people may dislike Trump. At least he's delivered. I haven't seen objectively as much as we've got 3.5 years out of him as in anybody since LBJ, and that wasn't, the best of things, because a lot of those two-edged swords are biting back, like this welfare thing that the queers are using to keep black folk down. On the local level, I have to be candid. I've spoken out against how 19.1% of the registered voters who are white, that's all they amount in Memphis, run everything. But I'm beginning to get the idea that it's not white versus black on the city level. It's queer versus straight people. And they are exploiting this white-black thing to camouflage it. So it's queer blacks and it's queer whites that are running the politics in Memphis. From Strickland in the city mayor's office to that queer boy that's got a suntan in the county mayor's office. When he and his wife have been lawyers at Memphis State Law School all of this time, and they haven't done one damn pro bono case that they can easily afford to do because they get paid one way or the other as professors, and they haven't done a damn thing for the community. It just goes out. The Tammy Sawyer that got up and on television told us we were not going to get these corrupt hack D-balls for voting machines replaced. Anybody that thinks we're going to, they can just forget it because it's not going to happen. She won't let it. But one and see, you got all of this stuff in there where it's like, what is the common thread? Queerness. Now, Kaluta, Ella Marin and I, we went and did this surveillance 6 years ago on this nominally Republican gathering place, and we saw black male Democrats kissing Republican male in the mouth while they were slow dancing. Republican women, females, kissing Democratic females in the mouth while they were dancing and feeling all over each other. See, that's what explains Memphis politics. It's clear. Not otherwise. This is a black town, but has anybody painted a sidewalk or a crosswalk red, black, and green? But you drive through certain parts of Memphis, and these queers, they've got rainbow-colored sidewalks, but there's not one damn red, black, and green sidewalk in the largest predominantly black city in America.
Okay. Well, Judge, let me come back to you on that because we've got a couple callers on the line. And young lady, are you still on the line?
She hung up.
Oh, I wanted to get her name. And she was talking about people being awake, et cetera, et cetera. Do we have a caller?
No.
Okay. The other caller hung up?
Yeah, he hung up, and when he hung up, that's when the young lady called.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, we've got Arthur Lee Wallace Jr. watching. Hakeem Love, my son, watching. Sheila A. Patton, watching. And well, it said that the caller on the line could have been Andre Guy. But anyway, if they hung up, so be it. Omar Baruti, you heard the judge speak on some very compelling entities, I'm going to use that word right now. And he also brings in the strategy of what a people such as black African Americans should be doing as of today.
You know, one thing I give to that group of people is that they have unity.
Mm-hmm.
They hang together.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't hear disunity inside that group at all. With us, we have unity in part. But when you hear the likes of Tammy Sawyer saying we're not going to replace the voting machines,
Mm-hmm.
that's disunity.
Mm-hmm.
You know damn well that thing is causing the elections to be corrupt. You know that. And you letting somebody else influence you to say, even though the money is there to replace the machines, to say that we're not going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Something's wrong with you. You don't need to go back in the office. They think they need to draw a flag now and pull you out of office.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to serve the rest of your term.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere, we got to have the same unity they have, and we got to have it even greater because we have greater numbers, and we have more to lose than they have. So let's come together and make it happen. I want to put this out there, too, for the church in the audience. And I know there are some church folks listening because you can't go to the church as you usually go to church. In this queer, this lesbian gay thing, let's go back to your Bible, because, you know, you read it. I hope you do. It says in the Bible that God killed everybody in Sodom and Gomorrah for doing the queer thing, the gay thing. He killed everybody, including the women, the children, the dogs, the cats. Everybody died. He rained fire on those two cities, and everybody died. So if God is against it, why are you for it? And why you have a question about it? Whether they should be accepted. He already said that they're not acceptable in his house. In the days of Noah, it said that everybody was killed on the earth. If it's mythology, it says mythology, but it has meaning. What it means that if you're not with God, then God's not with you. Mm-hmm. So he killed everybody on the earth. And the only people that survived were Noah and his family. That means that God is not with it. So what are you trying to take sides? Let's do this then. If you think God made a mistake, tell God to kiss your butt and throw the Bible in the toilet. Tell him you ain't gonna follow that. You're gonna follow your own mind, and that says I'm gonna be having men sleeping with men and women with women, and I'll be all right with it. And then tell God that's how you gonna operate, and throw the book away if it don't mean nothing to you. But if it means something to you as a Christian, then follow the book and quit trying to tell people to follow it and be a good Christian if you're not gonna be one. As an example.
That's right.
So Omar, just to kind of ask the same question in a way, but sort of condense it a little bit, be more critical, I'm going to say. Are you saying that many, if not most Christians, we won't say all, are these contradictions? Do they amount to hypocrisy? The Bible, Christians in church.
You know what it amounts to?
What does it amount to?
You know, they talked about Jesus coming to the temple. They were money changers in the temple.
Right.
It's all about the money.
Yeah.
They bring money to the offering plate, and you don't care about who they are. They could be wearing, pantyhose. We don't care if a man walking in with some pantyhose in the pocket because he put some money in the plate. That's not God. That's not morality. If you follow that, if you say everybody on earth, not on earth, but in America, they ain't gonna do it in most countries. They never heard of homosexuality in some countries. But if you say everybody in America can do their own thing, that means that it's gonna take many generations before this country is gone. Because gay people, two women together can't have children.
That's true.
And two men, they won't be able to have children.
That's true.
So that means that's the end. That's the end of civilization in this country as we know it.
As we know it.
And if you see, and right now I see a commercial on TV, two men who are talking about some kind of HIV medication.
Take a pill. This one.
Take a pill.
One pill per day.
And then you see these two black men happen to be black. Y'all put it on there for a purpose.
Right.
Because you're trying to effeminize the black man.
Right.
These two black men kiss each other at the end of the commercial. So now you see black children looking at that mess. And then they're confused about men kissing men. It's all right. And so they're going to think about kissing some other male themselves because they saw it on television. You're doing a brainwash on our children. And I think they should take it off the TV or take the company and boycott the damn company for even putting it up there. That should be something you put in your private bedroom, not something you put on the TV for the children to look at and be confused with it.
Well, let me ask you about this money question. Because money And it's very important. And that money allows you to own things, property, real estate, and etc. Dr. Claude Anderson, this is his main focus. And then Omar, when you say, I think you say sometimes, you say nothing has changed. I say, some people say, I say it too, not much has changed. But we're still as a group at owning less than 1/10 of 1% of the, in this country, the wealth, the money, etc. So, do I hear you saying that in the church, they're all only concerned about money, and it doesn't matter, the principle goes out of the door.
The morality goes
It goes out of the window. And so do I hear you saying that money is being directed in the wrong direction into the hands of a few? And these preachers don't really care about the masses of the people in the black community? Let's get on down to it.
You know, the White Methodist Church was supposed to have their convention in May of this year, and COVID-19 stopped that. But the primary reason for the convention was to decide, out of those millions of folks who are White Methodists, to decide which church is going to go with the traditional interpretation of Scripture, and which one will go with the expanded interpretation of Scripture, where it says that gay people are okay. They can be in the choir, they can be gay, they can get married in the Methodist Church. They can be ministers in the Methodist Church. So they're gonna split. And in the split, that was the foundation for the meeting. But COVID-19 stopped it. But again, how can you take the book that you gave to us and you quote to us and say that, God, we're gonna change your book and we're gonna give you a different interpretation because God, you didn't know what you were talking about. And you gotta change it, because otherwise, if both of y'all had the same book, the interpretation is very obvious. He killed everybody. He didn't leave nobody because of that activity. So how you gonna make us fit the narrative that it's okay? You can't make it do it unless you change the Scripture and change God's word and then say he didn't know what he was talking about.
Listen, we're at the top of the hour, AM 1600 WMQM. Give us a call. We've got a line open, 901-324-7490. Go ahead, Judge. I feel your vibe. You want to get on that one?
Let me add a little thing in there.
Yeah.
When you go to church, or you go to mosque, or you go to synagogue, they basically have some driving instructions. How to do what you need to do to be a good Muslim, to be a good Jew, to be a good Christian. And what I see in these churches now is like somebody saying, you don't have to stop on red anymore, you can drive straight through. And we got all these little queer boys prancing out of time with the music all up and around and about the pulpit. And we hear all of these things about the preachers coming down with HIV, which, by the way, there is an epidemic out there again. Beware, but the press now doesn't want you to know about it. It's like, what happened to the instructions that you're supposed to be following to protect these children that are supposed to be the future members of your church from being preyed upon by these perverts?
Yes.
What in the world happened to that? That's a driving instruction. Know the rules of what you're supposed to be. And it's like, Jesus loves everybody. Yeah, sure. Some people are abominations because they are enemies of the people. They've been enemies of the people for the longest bloody doggone time. That's why they have these sanctions against such practices. But people, like Brother Baruti, you just said, we don't do this. And oh yeah, one other little right thing. I forgot this. I was looking at my phone and something was striking me about today, and then I remembered it's my birthday. So anyway, it all got me distracted.
All right.
I forgot. But I guess, anyhow, it is what it is. But it's a hell of a thing on a birthday to be having a discussion on queers ruining the next generations of this country and of the people. So, one other little thing, I got another call, I mentioned this last week, from one of my African friends, a former roommate from 50-some years ago in college, and he said, they've got BLM people over there right now trying to convince the Africans that they ought to go gay.
Damn.
Go queer. So, you know, that's a crazy thing to find in the churches. I mean, you would expect the damn preachers to start preaching about damnation and hellfire. They don't. They talking about believe. If you believe in, you're okay, you're saved. So please let it swish, not clink into the collection plate. Because daughter wants a new car and wifey wants a new fur coat. And I've had my car for 2 years. I want another BMW RL. Maybe move up to a Bentley or a Rolls or something.
So you're saying, yeah, this is wasteful.
This is just not right.
Gotcha. Go back to Omar Baruti. Oh, he's writing a note. Go ahead, Omar. Because of COVID. Okay. All right, let's continue, Omar.
You know, as I look at what Judge is talking about, the country has gotten off track, way off track. And I see that being a detrimental effect to our children. That's why I cling close to my children and my grandchildren. And I want them to know the truth. And this country is full of lies and deception. That's why Obama was actually bought and paid for before he stepped his foot into the White House by the queer community. And they got more out of him than we got out of it. And I hate that, but I know that to be a fact. They gave millions of dollars to his campaign. And as a result of those donations, then he was singing to he was dancing to their music. Sad. But we have to, even if we don't have a dime to give to the campaign, we got to know that our children have to have moral values and principles. And if we don't, think about that. If we don't, if our children go the way their children are going, then after a while we won't be here. If you got men sleeping with men and women with women, where are you gonna have another generation coming from?
That's yes, sir.
You ain't gonna have it. And that's what they want anyway, to feminize the black man, so he would want to be with another man. And then dehumanize the black woman, so she want to be with another woman, and there won't be any babies born. We already got a problem with abortion. We don't need another problem to compound what we already got.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Do you think they are fighting for the right for a man and a woman to adopt a child?
They already got that right.
Wow.
Okay, we've got...
The other big news stories this week. Transplanting wombs from dead women or women who have had non-necessary hysterectomies into these queer boys who want to be girls so they can deliver babies. They are even pushing it as a right that they should be allowed to exercise more freely. That's getting sick. Wow.
All right, we've got Debbie Cooper is watching. And hey, Sheila wants to call in. Sheila, give us a call right here at 901-324-7490. Sheila wants to call in. We want to hear from you, Sheila. 901-324-7490. Go right ahead and give us a call, Sheila. And so, now let's be clear. When we say they, are we still talking about the Democratic, just call them Demogated Party? Are we still talking about that? And where do now here's my position. The Democrats are good for their handouts, you know, their giveaway programs that still keep black people in poverty. The Republicans, talk about today's Republican. Well, when you read about the history of both parties, you read some good sounding stuff to read. You do. But the Republicans, as I see it, as I'm observing, I see no action taken one way or the other. And that tells me they're complicit and they simply don't care. We're waiting on a call from Miss Sheila. Judge, and while she's getting ready, go ahead and respond to what I said, sir.
I think you're absolutely right. We know how ridiculous the Republican Party is in terms of it not being for black interests. And we ought to open our eyes so we see how piss poor the Democratic Party is toward us. So we have to start voting individuals, not parties. We have to become independents. And much as Trump leaves to be desired, I have to say, hold your nose and vote for the guy, because Biden is a long-term race.
Okay.
I remember back in the 60s, when Biden was just getting started politically, I happened to be working at the D.C. think tank, and Biden was talking nonsense then in the smallest state in the Union, Delaware, about allowing, as he put it, Negro kids in that talk then into the schools that was letting animals into the zoo, and he was not letting his children go to a zoo filled with animals. He was talking to black people.
I read that. Let's take Miss Sheila. Sheila, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Go ahead.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, again, look, one thing we know for sure, when they made the Bible, they didn't make it for us, they made it to use us. You know what I'm saying? So anytime anybody listening to the Bible, they already been hacked food and in many ways that they just don't understand.
So,
It's a control thing.
I understand.
They've been controlling us from day one, and they're still trying to control us. We have to pay attention to it. I keep all my kids and grandkids, because I don't believe that you're born gay bullshit. I believe that you have to, somebody has shown you that it's something that they make attractive. Yes. They put it on TV.
Yes.
And I remember my grandson, he was portraying some stuff like to me, like he might, holding his hand certain ways, what I did. I put a ball in it. This way you hold it.
Yeah.
Hold the ball. And then I started bringing him closer to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I figured, well, wherever he is, he's not learning what he needs to learn.
That's right.
Okay, so I know that you can raise your child the correct way. Mm-hmm. And you can keep them from being around the wrong people. Because when your child displays something that you don't like, y'all immediately look what I need to change around him.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I do for my children. But like I tell you, I feel sorry for these today Christians who, because how you reading the Bible to tell you slaves under your slave, that ain't slaves under your slave master. How am I? What? Not my God. That ain't me. That's for somebody who wants to control me. And if you come to listening to his mess, you gonna continue to go through the struggles that they have created for us. Mm-hmm. You have to know that he is God, true enough, but he ain't in that book. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And he ain't in them churches, because them folks keep up more confused than anything else. Mm-hmm. I just know that today, I know that I pray and I worship in a separate thing. I know that it has to be an intimate understanding with me and my God. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's about good, because I know that the books that they have ain't for me to read. Mm-hmm. So I just have to figure this thing the best way I can. I read, and then I learn, because I guess they're telling me all the folks over in Africa are going to go to hell because we have a Bible, right? Mm-hmm. No. It's not so. I just think that people need to worship whatever way they want to worship. Mm-hmm. And then if they learn, now the best thing they can do is put their Bible down and pick up some things about what went on in their country. Why do they know that religion is something that Africans really were on. They know we were on that. They know how deep we worship our God. So they immediately say, you know what, they don't run away on Sunday. We tell them Sunday is the day of rest. We teach them about this God thing. They pretty much knew how to control our minds when they gave us that book. And I think that now that they have, with the milk and all this different stuff they're doing, hormones, creating our males to be females. You know what I'm saying? They milk. Baby, I told them I know this for a fact. I her baby that look, and I breastfeed my boy is boys, and her boy is somebody else.
Oh.
Okay, and I say, she said, I don't know how you turned it. I do. I told you from the beginning, breastfeeding. Give them no milk, and then you be giving them cow milk, then you wonder why they act like heifers. You know what I'm saying?
Good point. Good point.
So,
Comical, but it's a good point. True.
And my grandfather used to tell me that. He said, you give them cow milk, they're going to act like heifers. You need to give them your milk. Cows need to drink cow milk. Babies need to drink their mama's milk. And that's why you see the white folks, they push for them 6 and 8 weeks so they know the business. So they can take care of their babies. They do what they need to do. Some of them women don't go back to work to the children in school. But we can't afford to do that kind of stuff.
Well, we thank you for calling, Miss Sheila. And Omar, we heard someone who comes across as she's thinking. And she's reading something other than the book she thinks is a book that's confusing for black people. And I heard her also say that she's working on solutions. She's paying attention to not just her children, but her grandchildren as well. That's what I heard from her, the comments that she made, Omar.
You got another call?
And let's go ahead, Omar. Go ahead, caller. We're going to go ahead and take you right now.
I couldn't help but to hear on what the discussion was talking about the co-op in the Black Lives Matter and what's going on there. You know that they're next going to push for pedophilia and this mystery Babylon religion.
Okay.
Yeah, this Babylon religion is going to be them worshiping the devil.
Okay. What's your name, sir?
And a lot of the communism.
All right. What's your name, sir?
My name is Marcus.
Marcus. Well, we thank you for calling in, Marcus.
Yes, sir.
We're going to take some comments from Judge on the words that you just spoke, and then come back to Omar. And the lady that the first lady, Judge, she was just talking about conservatism, making comparison there. And then I don't know if you heard the last two callers, but he was talking about, he went into Babylon and some other things. He went quite far back. But
I heard that. That one. That
okay.
First lady that was on earlier, I couldn't hear anything she said. The last lady, I heard what she said. It came through with very low volume. And
okay. I think we may have corrected that by now, but the first lady was talking about Kanye West running for president, which I thought was interesting. She mentioned black conservatives who hate themselves, and there's a person in the city here who calls himself black conservative. So that's what you did hear on that part. But we've got...
Why would you vote for Kanye West for U.S. president? What is the presumption that you make a president because you've been married to slut number one?
Well, not only that, it's the music, the rap music, and etc. But we've seen some what appears to be bipolarism coming from that particular individual.
I mean, you're just supposed to be, you know, when crisis hits, the president's supposed to be the main tactician and strategist to figure out what needs to be pulled from what little crook and corner in the country here and there to get it together. He's commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and Kanye West is trying to hold himself out as competent for that.
Do you think he's going to split the vote?
Like, come on, have you no self-respect and put yourself out with that kind of dummy thing and you have no obvious preparation?
Well, Judge, here's what she said. Judge, here's what she said. Isaac wants to know if he would split the vote, and she said that he would get 2 votes. So 2 votes will not split anything.
He might get some votes now.
Let's give him 2 votes. Let me show you how bad this is done. I'm going to get on the Republican Party on this one. Dr. Bill Frist of Nashville, whose family founded Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and everything, who is the actual person who drafted what's known as Obamacare, more officially, American Affordable Health Care. I talked to him one time, and he advised me face to face that he had not registered to vote until he was 35 years old, and the first and only person he voted for the first time was himself in the Republican primary for U.S. Senator, and in the main election, the only person he voted for was himself, nobody else. And most lately, an upgrade on that, he has never voted for anybody in his whole life but himself, and he was senior Republican U.S. Senator from the state of Tennessee. And at one point, Republican Senate Majority Leader from 2001 or 2 all the way up till the Democrats got the House back again before they messed up again with gun control. And this is another thing I want to bring out. We need to discuss. These charlatans talking about getting rid of police and getting into gun control so the people can't be armed to protect themselves. That makes no sense.
Right.
And by the way, the dishonesty, I went and looked up the law in the states where these things are taking place, and they are lying to the public. Like up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, if they get rid of the police up there, the state constitution mandates that the sheriff take over the law enforcement. So all it is that the money that the city would be spending has to be made up for by the citizens of the state. And the other thing is right now, 2 tranny queers on that city council up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, admitted tranny queers. They have spent over $120,000 of taxpayers' money on personal security around their houses since they voted to defund the police department. I mean, does anybody get the idea that, you know, it isn't all the kumbaya moment where everybody holds hands down in the hood of the barrios and starts singing some nonsense, you know? So,
Well, just let me add, look, we've got time for 1 or 2 more calls. 901-324-7490, and pick us up online as well, AM 1600 and AM 730 West Memphis, Arkansas. The 2 of you. There's much talk about the police resigning, retiring. Most of these guys are white guys, of course. And so, Omar, would you like to see young black African Americans begin to apply for these positions, particularly in the black community?
Especially those that are conscious, that see the racism, the oppression of police officers, because I have seen it firsthand my own self in my lifetime, and it's still there. And when I do my libation, I'm researching what happened to us. And I'm seeing that racism inside the police department. And it's, and I don't care how many times you address it, the police officer wins most of the time.
Yes.
He'll get his job back, keep his pension, he's gonna keep rolling like nothing ever happened. And they need to have a national database so that when a police officer is reprimanded, it's in their database. When he's fired from a job for things that are unbecoming his duties as a police officer, it's in that database. And you should not be allowed to hire a police officer that has multiple offenses, especially when it comes to racial issues. He's not fit to serve and protect anybody, including his own people. We got to put that database. I'm gonna say it until I go to my grave. We got to have that database so that we can stop hiring police officers that don't mean us any good.
Same question, Judge.
Robert Rudy, I agree with you, but be careful. That's what Trump is pushing under the executive order he's been telling us he's going to issue. it's interesting. Sometimes politics, you get strange allies.
Well, now wait a minute, Judge.
100%. One of the things that I think they need to do is do some more psychiatric evaluation and assessment of some of these people.
Okay, true. But what do you mean about being careful?
I was joking, you know.
Oh, okay.
Brother Baruti doesn't like Mr. Trump.
They saying it mildly. Now, come on now. You can do better than that.
He said you were saying it mildly. Let him tell us how he really feels.
But Trump was saying we need a database to keep track of these bad cops, and all incidents need to be reported just like they do on everybody else, you know? And you got this thing where people are pushing to get more psychiatric assessments of folks who come in for certain kind of jobs and to buy firearms and things like that. So why not work for the police? You see, that's one of the problems. The police reflect the community, and our communities are not safe. So we need to see that we don't get representatives of the less than sane parts of communities carrying those sidearms and uniform with all of that communications equipment suite that they can avail themselves of, you know? We have to do something better about who we put in. And I noticed over the years that I was involved as a judge, and before that, public defender, private defense lawyer, all of this, prosecutor too. There's some cops that never have problems. And then there's some that every damn day they have a problem.
Yes.
And if you ever watch them, it's their attitude.
Yes.
Because they have personal demons that have gripped their souls and they can't let go.
Okay. Well, we've got, real quick, Judge, we've got Carlos Yatez watching, Debbie Cooper watching, and Dara Ajanaku watching on Facebook. And we thank you all very much. Go ahead, Judge.
Well, you know, bottom line on this whole thing, we have to start thinking and getting away from emotion. We have to start studying and get away from this thing. I want people to do me a favor. Whatever the election, when you walk in and somebody hands you one of these ballots, proposed ballots, if you don't already know the person that's endorsed on these ballots and you don't already have a good opinion, don't vote for them. Because they've got some of the most corrupt, sleazy people that give money to some other sleazy people that put these ballots out. And they stick them up under your nose when you're walking in the poll. You don't know who's who, and you vote on that ballot if somebody's name is supposedly associated with it. I've been, you know, associated with some of these ballots by name that I never heard of the people that put them out, never talked to them.
Yeah.
Some other folk have had that too.
Okay.
There was a Joe McCarthy. He was a judge, Division 8 criminal court for years and years and got the black bloc vote every election. Joe McCarthy had been chairman of the White Citizens Council and Grand Dragon of the Klan around here. And he was not only a racist, he was a sick puppy who had some psychological problems when it came to all people. But we kept putting him back in the box. Chris Kraft, who took over from 8, he is dumb, he's not well-read, he's stupid, he is a racist of the worst sort. He kept getting the black bloc vote because he would buy his way onto these ballots.
Okay, Judge, we're about out of time. We've got less than. I'm coming back to you. I got you. Got you. I'm going to come back to you for a final thought. And we've got D. Terry Yarbrough watching. I want to build on one thing you said. We must start thinking as opposed to operating from our emotions. Yes. Another thing, Omar, is this. that we see a lot of individuals out here doing work, attempting to do work, but very little group work. But the judge pointed out sometimes you have to hold your nose and vote for someone. I'm suggesting that we may have to hold our nose and work with someone, or to call for unity, committee unity, working together as a group to get things done as opposed to out there by yourself. Omar, what do you say in terms of the last few comments that you've heard?
We got a high mountain to climb.
Yes, it is very high.
We can't stop now.
Mm-hmm.
I was leaving a rental property yesterday, working on a rental property, and as I got past the Board of Education on Hollywood, right there Central, at the red light, a car pulled up at the red light. They had a green light, but they stopped in the middle of the intersection. And I saw on the side of the car, they were talking about Native American, Indian rights, and they were talking about the Indian movement. And about 40 or 50 cars came through that red light while she was blocking the traffic. Because they have awakened as well. Black Lives Matter has awakened that group of people. Talking about, you on Indian land, when you going to leave? That was one of the signs I saw on the side of the car. But again, they have awakened because they have been oppressed, as we have been oppressed, and sometimes even worse. But again, Black Lives Matter, I salute you, and I salute the things you're doing. Don't let those people come into your group and then compromise your values and your principles and take you off track.
Okay, we're about out of time, Judge. Let's take 30 seconds each. Final thought, Judge. Going to you, back to Omar, then I'll close it out.
Black folk matter. I refuse to utter anything in support of Black Lives Matter because it was corrupted from Jump Street when some lesbian sluts pimped it.
All right. Omar, final thought.
That's all I have to say about that. But think, folks, think.
Yes.
It's time to use our heads instead of our feelings.
All right, Judge. Next week, will you be joining us? It seems like we're building a strong narrative. Judge Joe Brown, everybody. Omar, close it out, Omar.
COVID-19, if the white man invented it, he would have had a way to stop it from getting it. Look, God has got his hand in here somewhere.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Power Show, everybody. Yes. Think, think, think. Critical thinking. Critical thinking, critical thinking, all the way right here on the Love Power Show.
All right, you are tuned into the Love Power Show with Wallace Red and Mr. Omar Baruti, and also the one and only, the legendary Judge Joe Brown. Coming away next, we have the voices of New Africa.